Hello, and good evening. Actually, we're doing a little show tonight about some family court horrors. That's the topic that we're going to cover, and I have some guests with me, and we'll get to them in a second. And the focus tonight is really a certain therapist and a certain group in Illinois that is really symbolic and endemic of what happens in the family courts with court appointed therapists and others. And that's Dr. David Finn. There have been some horror stories about this guy. I actually covered one a couple of years ago already. Now it's actually last year. It was actually January of 2025. It was an article, and I'm going to share an article that I did. There's a video component which will kind of set the stage for what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I'm going to play this for everyone, and then we'll get to introduce our guests.
A cloud of suspicion. Dr. David Finn, an Illinois child psychologist, faces serious accusations. Critics accuse him of manipulating testimonies and ignoring abuse allegations. Some allege he fabricates reports to favor certain parents. Supporters argue he is dedicated to children's best interests. They claim the accusations are baseless. Finn denies wrongdoing, maintaining his evaluations are unbiased. This controversy highlights the contentious nature of family court. It underscores the need for transparency and accountability. The well-being of children must be the paramount concern. Troubling allegations, fabricated reports, and dismissed abuse. Critics allege Dr. Finn's reports contradict other professionals. Teachers, therapists, and Child Protective Services report concerns, yet Finn's evaluations differ. This raises red flags for those who believe Finn is biased. Serious accusations claim he dismisses or downplays abuse. Critics point to cases where evidence of abuse was ignored. They argue his evaluations prioritize keeping children with both parents, even when there's evidence of harm. Parents who lost custody based on Finn's evaluations feel betrayed. They accuse Finn of prioritizing the wealthier parent. These accusations paint a disturbing picture of a system that values profit over children's well-being. If true, they represent a gross miscarriage of justice. The family court system must be a place where children's voices are heard and their safety is paramount. Critics say that when professionals abuse their power, the consequences are devastating, and the offenders should face criminal penalties. A family torn apart. The case of Sarah and Mark. Sarah accused Mark of abuse. Dr. Finn dismissed her claims. Mark got custody. Sarah was devastated. Ethan suffered more. Sarah fights for custody. The stakes are high. Questionable methods. Parental alienation and its discontents. Some critics say Dr. Finn's use of parental alienation theory is controversial. It suggests one parent manipulates a child against the other. Critics argue it discredits abuse allegations, aiding abusers. Critics say theory lacks empirical support and misleads courts. Children's safety must be the top priority. Follow Luthmann.substack.com for continuing coverage.
Okay, and so that's with that intro in place. I'm going to bring on George Kostakis, and he's a father from Illinois. George, how are you tonight?
Hi, Richard. Could be better.
I guess you could be, yeah. That's what they say about family court. It's kind of like walking through the gates of hell. He who enters shall lose all hope. So what's going on? You've been in Illinois, and your case has been going on for quite a while. The way that you've told it to me, it's almost over a decade at this point. Is that
Over a
true?
decade. Correct. Since 2015, on and off, without any parenting agreement, and multiple attorneys, multiple judges, multiple therapists, child representatives, evaluators, with no end in sight.
Oh my. So you're in Illinois, you're in Chicago, Cook County?
Cook County, yes.
Okay. And so have you had the same judge for 10 years or has it been multiple judges?
No, we're on our third judge. We started out
Your
with
third?
Judge Loza. She got transferred to Rolling Meadows. We had a transition judge, Judge Arce, and then we are currently with Judge Ahern. And a lot of things get missed and lost from judge to judge. Things do not get heard. The due process is just not being followed. Things have not been done the right way. And I'm in a terrible position without my daughter over the last 4 years.
We've covered Chicago family courts a lot. My podcast partner, Mike Volpe, is actually from Chicago. We've dealt with a lot of the people there, even the law firms. Have there been law firms involved in your case?
We've had several different law firms. I've tried to represent myself mostly throughout this. I've talked to many different firms just to feel different people out and see what can be done. And I've gotten the same kind of runaround that this was going to drag on forever. It just seems like it's a money-making scheme from every law firm too, that, oh, we're going to just take the crumbs and do what they tell us and keep this going until she's 18. I've had a couple different attorneys and we've parted ways because it's exactly what happened. I ended up paying retainers and many hourly fees, and they would just go to court and take the crumbs without any due process, without any hearings, without any justification of why certain things were happening. And anytime I would try to call them out on anything, they would get very mad and tell me and yell at me, tell me I don't know why that they don't. I'm telling them I don't know. Why am I telling them that they don't know how to do their job and I should find somebody else? Anytime I question anybody in this process, I'm yelled at. So
you're in a court and you don't have a lawyer. Does your ex have a lawyer?
She's been on and off with multiple attorneys too, and we're both without a lawyer now. Yes.
So over the past decade plus, how much do you estimate, back a napkin, you and your wife together have spent on lawyers alone? Just the lawyers. We're not talking about therapists. We're not talking about this one, that one, the other one. How much on lawyers do you think you spent?
One correction. Luckily, she was never my wife. I dodged that bullet.
Okay.
Okay. For lawyers, probably over 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've taken that money basically out of your daughter's mouth. And then on top of that, there's all sorts of other people that were appointed by the courts. Correct? There are therapists and there are also different people. How much have you spent on stuff that are non-lawyers?
Between GALs, child representatives, evaluators, therapists, reconciliation, reunification, we're looking at least 50,000 so far.
So it's another 50,000. You spent $150,000.
Yes. And
that's all. That could basically be your a large chunk of your daughter's college fund.
College, correct?
Right? Yeah. And you're not sending your daughter to college. You're sending a bunch of other people's kids to college. It sounds like through this system.
We're just average income. After since COVID, just lower income. We're not making that kind of money, either of us, to support that.
You're not somebody. What part of Chicago are you from? You're not from the northern suburbs. Are you like a big time?
Yeah.
What part of the northern suburbs are you from?
Mount Prospect currently.
Okay, Mount Prospect. I know that there's a couple of those big ones like Schaumburg and Glencoe and everything else that are made of money, and that's we see some of the law firms up there. But you're not a guy that's made of money. You don't have it like that, right? You're just a regular guy.
I worked hard to save what I made, and I plan to have a family and spend it on my family, and it's all gone.
Yeah. Okay. So, the guy that we're here to talk about a little bit, or actually a lot of bit, is Dr. David Finn, and I did this story about. I'm going to put his picture up so everybody can see, and we haven't talked about his family court's misery broker. At a certain point, you're going to have to see Dr. Finn or somebody like him if you're in a family court case. And it's amazing. And I want you to kind of convey to the audience, really, how much control this man or somebody like him has over your life and over your ability to see your children and over your ability to, just to live? Tell us about it.
So basically, the child representative, Joanna Shalacombe, recommended him to the judge. She says that he's the best and he would evaluate our situation and make the decision of what our daughter's life should look like and who she should be with and whatever decisions, he recommends to the judge. And we were forced through a 604B evaluation without having any due process. There was never a hearing. Again, I was representing myself pro se to start out. So they kind of threw all this on me and I questioned it, and there was no hearing from the judge when I questioned it. They just told me, this is what you're doing. There was no due process. There was no findings of anything of endangerment of anything to justify this to be the case. So we met Dr. Finn, and his decisions and his write-ups and whatever he puts forth is what the judge basically goes off of, right? And when he evaluates, he looks at mom, he talks to dad, he talks to the child, and then he writes a report off of meeting each of us once or twice. And in my situation, he didn't talk to any other family members. He didn't do any other interviews. He looked at nothing that I presented to him. I gave him 12 years of documentation of my daughter's life with me, of our relationship as a family, of things that my daughter had written, videos, everything. And he only focused on the 3 years that my daughter had left my life and was with mom. And that was what he wrote his evaluation on. And his recommendation was to not have my daughter with me and to go through extensive therapy and supervised visits. And of course, the therapist he recommended was a therapist in his office. And
of course.
Yeah.
So
with an indefinite time of therapy.
I want to go back to something that's very important for people to recognize. And I'm going to actually put something onto the stage now. And you said it when you spoke. You had somebody who was already appointed in the case, right? It was you said the custody evaluator, or who did you say it was?
The child representative. So
child
she's
representative.
my daughter's attorney.
Okay, so she's the representative for the child that you have to pay for, right?
Yes.
And you have it all over here. That you have an order that was entered in May 15th of 2023. That's not a final order; it's still a temporary order, correct?
Correct.
So it's a temporary order that's still going. It's almost 3 years old now, and it has a whole thing. This is an order in the court, okay? And basically you have someone who's already getting money on from the courts or from the parents, and they are the ones who are recommending to appoint other people to get paid money by the court. And sure enough, a little under a year later, February 15th, 2024, Dr. Finn gets appointed by the court.
Correct.
So you have one court appointee recommending another court appointee, and it's all made legitimate, and the court signs the order, and that person is there. And it's what happens. That's what happens when you go to family court. Now, the next step that I want to show people, and we'll get into this in a little bit, is the money aspect, and we're going to talk a bunch about it. But and I do want to bring on Jill Jones Soderman, who is the executive director and founder of the Foundation for the Child Victims of the Family Courts, because she's had some experience with Dr. Finn. But I want to make it clear to the audience what this is. And I'm going to put this up on the screen. It's the fee agreement that they had you sign. Tell me why you believe this is a money-making game. And we'll let everybody see. This is the actual agreement, the custody evaluation fee agreement. Talk to us about, this is, I think, the first thing that you ever got handed from Dr. Finn. Tell us about the fee agreement.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of open-ended, and it states that I will get billed based on whatever is required for them to do. There's going to be interviews and write-ups and evaluations and a final report that can range anywhere between $20 to $25 or above $1,000. And all of these people's rates, they're between $300 and $500 an hour. I don't make that kind of money. I don't know where I'm going to come up to pay that kind of money. So it's, and between him and then therapy and the child representative, these hourly rates add up, like we said, to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So one person's recommending to theirs, and right there on right in
On this last page,
Yeah.
this is an estimate. This is not the bill. This is the estimate.
the estimate.
And we all
Correct.
know, like all contractors, they always go over their estimates. So you
Correct.
got 10 hours interview per parent, right? That's $8,500. That's just 10 hours. If you needed more, you need more. 4 hours for child observation and interview, $1,700. Testing. You got a testing, and we'll come back to that about what the testing was. Testing both parents, $2,100. Document review, estimated at 10 hours, $4,250. Collateral interviews, 4 interviews estimated at 30 minutes each. That's another $5,000. That's another $850. The report fee, $5,000 to write the report. The total cost, $22,400. And that's with all the bells and whistles. That's with none of the extras thrown in. Now,
And that's if
you
it was
already-
done promptly
Yeah.
within the couple months that it should have been done. Ours dragged on for 2 years, and there was a lot more communication in those 2 years, which added another $20,000 to $30,000 to this cost for communication back and forth between everyone, because the report was not done within the couple month time frame that it should have been done.
so they gave this estimate, $22,400,
Mhm.
right? And it went over, not for a couple of months, because they said this is a few months, this estimate. It went over a couple of years.
Couple of years.
And so this is after COVID. There's no excuse because COVID is over, right? There was no war, there was no famine, there was no plague. It was just the way that the Cook County courts operate. I think that you'd have to be on drugs to think that you could get something like this done in a few months in Cook County. Wouldn't you say that?
Oh, correct. And they kept spinning around in wheels, and the child representatives kept making excuses that other things should have been done and this wasn't a priority. But yeah, these fees and these costs, I mean, they basically gave us a Myers-Briggs test on the computer that he analyzed after. That was the test.
So that's what your testing was. That was your $2,100 of testing.
Yes.
So you and your the child's mother doing Myers-Briggs testing on a computer.
Correct.
Okay. And then you had the interview. They interviewed. Did you get 10 hours worth of interview?
Yes, each of us. Well, I did. Mom never went back for her second one. And that was part of the delay. So it took 2 months. It took 2 years so that nobody was on top of the process to make things happen like they should have been on time. And they made excuses for mom to not go as she was supposed to that whole time, which added to the costs.
And then there was the child observation interview. So they interviewed the child.
They interviewed the child, and then they watched us play board games together. So I went in with my daughter, mom went in with our daughter, and they sat and watched us play board games for an hour to see how we interacted.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, we did the testing.
That was the evaluation.
Then document review, and that you said that you handed documents, a whole bunch of documents to them, and you feel that they weren't reviewed. Talk to us about this document review.
So I'm very detailed with and very organized with everything that I put together. I put together family albums, pictures with my daughter, all my daughter's write-ups, videos. She was very articulate from a very young age, writing things to me, Father's Day, holidays, everything. She was with me 80% of the time. I presented everything to Dr. Finn. I had spreadsheets of the time that she was with me. I had calendars of how many, sleepovers she was with me, everything that the court would need to see what life the child had for 11 years. And there was no focus on any of that. The focus was from the point that mom had her, which was starting November 1st, 2022. And she never wanted to come back. And there was no looking backwards to see, well, wait a minute, what happened? This kid had this great life for 11 years. Mom and dad were back and forth. Of course, the adults had problems. Of course, it affected the kids somehow. But for this child to leave the house overnight, all of a sudden, and never come back, not take anything of hers, like her life was here with me. She didn't take any of her clothes, her toys, her school supplies, nothing, left like a ghost in the night, and never asked for anything again. And he didn't make anything of it. No questions, nothing about mom having caused anything or done anything or alienation or whatever the terms, it was nothing.
So then the next item becomes collateral interviews. 4 interviews estimated at 30 minutes each. Were there 4 interviews? Were there collateral interviews conducted?
They never happened. So he was supposed to talk to the grandparents, to other family members, to cousins, aunts, uncles, and those never happened.
Okay. And then there's a report fee for $5,000 for him to take all of this and write up his report.
Correct.
And then the total they had was $22,400. And you said that it went over. It went extremely over. And I'm going to bring in Jill at this point, and we'll talk about this for a second. Then we'll go back to how much over it went and what happened. But there's Jill Jones Soderman. How are you, Jill?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Jill is the founder and executive director of the Foundation for the Child Victims of the Family Courts. And actually, I'll throw up her website real quick for everyone to see. This is her foundation's website. And she does something that's very interesting as a nonprofit organization. She actually helps out with resources and with education and acts as a watchdog for basically families that are almost in the same position as George. They're similarly situated, where they've been taken through the ringer in the family court system. And and when you go to family court, it's a different kind of place. Everything in the family court is money, money, money. And then there's all these people that have this crazy control over your life. You never knew that the acrimony that this stuff could happen. And all of a sudden you have one court appointed recommending another court appointed, recommending another court appointed. And so before you know it, if you're not careful with what's happening, you can basically become spent physically, emotionally, monetarily, in every way possible. And one of the things that Jill does is she helps with management. Some people call it litigation management. They have this in big things, but it's also holistic management as well, trying to find out that the right people, the right team is together for her, for the people and their needs. So Jill, tell us specifically, first you can talk about the foundation, about yourself, what you do, and then tell us about Dr. Finn and how you know Dr. Finn.
The foundation was established in 2007 following the suicide death of a young child who was 12 years old. And that suicide and that of his younger brother and the insanity of another child in that family, and ultimately the death of their mother, was precipitated by a psychologist by the name of Paul Dasher that implemented the same kind of structural regulation in custody litigation that transferred the child and children into the custody of the abuser. The complaints that came into family court that were stimulated the legal process of separation and divorce arose because of complaints of very, very severe abuse of the child and of the parent. And that abuse was very well established, was very well documented, both by legitimate, well-trained, independent therapists where there was therapy. The public must be aware that therapy is a private, confidential, and directed by self-will. It is not a matter of coaching, of direction, of control, and punishment. The situation with the court is that parents, protected parents, all parties, are not subject to a treatment situation, but to a directed process that transfers the child from one parent to the other. And it is in the course of transfer that the money process begins. First with the
but before we get into that, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about money in a second. George just told us about all the money that these people want from him.
Right.
Okay, that these people want from his child's mother. All the money the courts want. They want to take one appointed, and they want to hire another appointed, and they want to hire. That's their solution.
Right.
So tell us about Dr. Finn. Dr. Finn is our star today. Tell us about Your experience with him, is this the first time you've heard that name?
No, I've had a number of cases. Dr. Finn has elected to leave the cases when he's been aware that the foundation and our litigation, prosecution, management of family court cases are involved in the case. My first interaction with Dr. Finn involved a case in which the child, a young teenager, had complained for years of terrible, terrible physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Finn's involvement in the case forced the child into the isolation and custody of the father. And the child engaged in a very, very serious suicide attempt, injecting herself with poison, and almost died, hospitalized and almost died. And Finn insisted that it was at the behest of the mother, because the child was fabricating allegations of abuse, both of herself and her younger brother, that the child had to be separated from her mother.
Well, wait a second, Jill. That is a serious charge. That there was fabrication by Dr. Finn.
Yes.
What exactly
false
did you encounter was fabricated?
It was a false narrative using the concept, the Gardner jettisoned concept of parental alienation. Now, parental alienation.
Oh wait, well, now wait a second. Now that we have that, well, I'm gonna go back to George and just ask him. In your experience with Dr. Finn, and who else was it? Was Hagler as well? What was his name?
Mark Hagler is the therapist that was supposed to help us with reunification.
Okay, so it was reunification therapy, and so you were recommended to go to reunification therapy, even ordered, I guess, to go to reunification therapy by the court. Explain to us, George, what your understanding of this reunification therapy was.
It was supposed to be for me and my daughter, and then eventually mom was supposed to be a part of it, to very slowly reintroduce us to each other and help us be together again under a controlled environment. It was a very unnatural, forced situation where Mark Hagler was in charge of the room and just telling us what we should say to each other and how we should be. And if we didn't talk the way he wanted, if we didn't behave the way he wanted, he was, especially with me, he was in my face, yelling and screaming at me in front of my daughter. And we lasted a whole 2 sessions before it was over. It was a very uncomfortable, uneasy experience. My daughter became more disrespectful towards me through the experience, just looking at me and laughing because somebody was yelling at me. And this was something that was court ordered. And the whole process, the experience, and then having Hagler and Finn in the same office made the bill payments and the control of that money, again, a big situation. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about now or wait for the money talk. Or
we'll go into it in a second. I want to go back now to Jill. And Jill, tell us about reunification therapy. And reunification therapy is something that's predicated and based on the work of Dr. Richard Gardner and parental alienation syndrome. Tell us about Dr. Gardner and reunification therapy.
Well, just as parental alienation is a brainchild of Dr. Gardner, so is reunification, so-called reunification therapy. These practices are antithetical to any kind of therapeutic process. This is not therapy. It is a form of discipline and control that is antithetical to the wishes of both child and parent, and ignores the reality of why there was separation in the first place.
And I've seen a lot of that, a lot on your website, a lot of resources on your website. The Foundation for Child Victims of the Family Courts, fcvfc.org, and there's stuff that's written by you, and there's also references to findings by the United Nations. There's also other top domestic violence and violence experts that say that in its extreme forms, reunification therapy is a form of torture. Can you
No,
speak on that?
it's not in its extreme form. It is an extreme form. It is a forced process in which children and adults are told what to think, what to say, and every thought or interaction is examined and corrected. It is you're like Pavlov's dog in terms of control and manipulation. This is not a therapy, and it is not true that there aren't parents who are abusive, toxic parents who antagonize children, manipulate them against one parent or another. This is another diagnosis. It's another dynamic, but parental alienation arises specifically, only, and consistently within the context of the Gardner concept. And that Gardner concept, which is specifically interesting in terms of George, because he was never accused in any manner, shape, or form of any kind of abuse or ill treatment of the child. The mother of the child was had abandoned the child over an earlier life and stepped into the picture when the child was older, and there was an interest in re-engaging with her.
So Jill,
yes,
Jill, I want to just stop you. I wanted to talk about something you said before. Okay, that you've said that Dr. Finn belongs in prison.
yes.
You argue that his actions constitute a coordinated fraud, and that his reliance is because of his reliance on the parental alienation theory developed by Dr. Richard Gardner. You've called it a pseudoscientific smokescreen, okay? And you just called it on the air. You said it was torture. Tell us about this, and then we're going to after you talk, we're going to go back to George and ask about how he felt about it. He told us talked a little bit about it, but I want to hear more about that. Tell us about Gardner and tell us about the claims that you've made.
The United Nations has written extensively in its Council on Violence Against Children about reunification services as a child torture. That's not my phrase for it. My phrase is that the family court and its actions with regard to appointment of so-called psychologists like David Finn and others who I have talked about is a child trafficking criminal enterprise. And the underlying issues have to do with funds, with extorting funds from parents, the great majority of whom are attempting in good will and good faith to protect their children. So the court has an assembly line process of lawyers and now this whole coterie of professionals and experts to force to move children. It's not the intent of movement. It is just that they're moved. If you're happy in one place, they're going to put you in someplace else. If you're not happy in that place, they'll put you someplace further. It has nothing to do with the actual truth or evidence of the moment. Getting back to Gardner, Richard Gardner, MD, had a forensic practice and developed a marketing program that was based on men who were tried criminally for crimes of incest. Gardner's basic concept is that children are sexual predators and that they inveigle in very young children, and that children are sexually functional from birth, not from teenagers, but from birth. And that children are these malevolent, lying little miscreants who inveigle adults into sexual activity. Okay. And when the child then says, they've been harmed, the Gardner says that that's not true. It was the child's fault. These are manipulative little lying monsters. And anybody who takes up the complaint of the child and says that there's abuse in some form, the child is lying. And this is because the parent who's bringing claims to the authorities is looking for an advantage in the situation. Is looking,
And that's the point I wanted to get to, Jill.
Yes.
And on your website, you have a lot of the resources here about reunification. I'm going to bring this to George in a second, but you talk about the structural consequences of forced reunification. This is court-ordered reunification, and I need to say, as an aside, there are many forms of it. There's one form that actually was outlawed federally. I think Paris Hilton got it. These kidnap camps. They had kidnap camps in the United States that were outlawed at the end of the last administration. But they were reunification camps. Some of them functioned as kidnap camps. They would kidnap the child and put them in a room with one parent or an abusive parent or the parent they didn't want to see for a couple of days before they say you can't do anything until you start doing what we tell you. That portion's been outlawed, but there are these.
No, it's not outlawed. It is not outlawed. It is alive.
No, the kidnap camps are outlawed. They can't do the kidnap under federal law. The kidnap camps are no longer legal, but they do forced court ordered where everybody has to show up at a place for several days and stay there. That's still legal and on the books, and that's something. But what, Jill? But what I want to point to the website and what parents out there need to know are the structural consequences of the forced reunification, and I want George to talk on this in a second, and that the reunification therapy can influence custody evaluations, reshape judicial perceptions of parental cooperation, establish compliance benchmarks for the court and for the appointeds, and generate therapist opinions of alienation to the court. This is one of those control things you were talking about before, George, right? This whole idea of parental alienation and reunification. Did you feel like you had to jump through all the hoops that they put in front of you when you went to this parental, the reunification?
Every single step. I mean, for the 11 years that we've been in court. But before we go there, I want to correct the record just in case my daughter sees this. Mom did not abandon her. She was in and out of the picture. That was our problem. Mom has been around, but she was not present for 11 years. So I just want to make sure that's clear. But yeah.
And it wasn't because you were antagonistic towards her or didn't welcome her and want her to be present. Correct.
Yes. She was just didn't have an interest in having kids until they were buddies, until they were old enough to be her buddy. And that was our problem for 11 years and why we were in court.
Okay. But we focus on this reunification therapy, and you were ordered to do it. Does this feel like a form of court-ordered coercion for you, that the court's trying to?
There was court-ordered supervision, and I went to court, and the supervision was so unnatural. It was felt like prostitution, and I brought it up to the judge too. It's like I'm paying to get my daughter pimped out to me so I could see her. Now I'm paying to go to supervision, or I'm paying to go to therapy with my daughter. And when I'm in therapy, Mark Hagler is in my face telling me to do specific things. And I asked him kindly, I'm like, please don't talk to me this way in front of my daughter. Please don't demand these things. I said, I'm not a circus monkey to perform. And he starts yelling and screaming at me. If you don't like this, get out. And he was a big guy. He's taller than me, bigger. And then he stands up, opens the door, yelling and screaming at me to get out. I'm the professional. If you don't like it, here's the door, get out and don't ever come back. And then I walk to the door. I'm like, don't talk to me like this way in front of my daughter. And he walks me to the door, and when we're out of my daughter's sight, he whispers to me, I'm your friend. I'm trying to help you. But if you walk out this door, you're never going to get my help again. And both times this happened, I broke down in tears. I felt it like I was getting beat up, destroyed, and then groveling back in. And I like I was in a battle, and I started crying. I go, I want to be in my daughter's life. I want to be with her. I'll do whatever. And then I go back in, and I felt like a beaten up little kid. And I'd sit there, and I'm like, okay, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? And then session would be over, and we'd go back the next day or the next week. And it was the same thing, and it happened for 3 times, and I couldn't do it anymore. It was just, it felt so unnatural, degrading, emasculating, unfatherly. Like my daughter looked at me, and she would laugh.
Now, I want to break this down because, and Jill, I think you can speak to this, because there's a big difference between therapy, family therapy, and reunification therapy. I think the core of family therapy is trust. And it sounds like the reunification therapy, George, that you experienced is anything but. Can you talk about, Jill, can you talk about what the difference between, accepted family therapy and reunification therapy, court-ordered reunification therapy?
First of all, let's not apply the term therapy to reunification. This is an aspect of a child trafficking criminal enterprise used for money and self-supporting. It justifies its own existence by the more that any party objects, the harder the structure, the court and the ordering platforms demand compliance. This is a sadistic, out of Marat Desaad, dominatrix interaction. This should never be called therapy. This is a source of relaxation and
tell us how healthy therapy is supposed to go.
It's confidential. It's one in which individuals are respected, the dignity and the independence, and it would never ever take place in the course of accusations, and especially founded accusations of child physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. No,
and that's the point. That's the point here, is that, and this was not present in George's case, but there are some cases where there's terrible allegations, and especially there's terrible abuse in certain cases, right. And court-ordered reunification seems to be one size fits all. Mm-hmm. And by ordering an abuse type case into reunification, it's like pouring gasoline onto the fire. There's no good that can come from that. And these courts seem not be able to do it. I think they're going to borrow the line, the program to receive. That's what they are. They're programmed to receive. And that's going to bring us to what I'm going to talk about here. This is the communication that you had with David Finn, George, about his billing. Why don't you tell us what happened with the billing and where that stands now?
So this is, so the billing was accumulating over the years because it was delayed. So throughout the 2 years that we were supposed to have the evaluation completed, I would still submit the events that were occurring, violations of visitation. I had set dates that we were supposed to have visitations with my daughter, and they would not happen. We would show up to pick her up. She'd refuse to go. We'd have police involvement. Mom would not open the door. My daughter wouldn't come in. I would keep reporting these to the child representative, to Dr. Finn, and nothing would come about it. So all of these things added to the bills. A year and a half later, we get these $20,000 bills, like I mentioned earlier on, that added on to it. And now we're in the same office of Mark Hagler and Dr. Finn. So we're forced into reunification in the same office. And reunification now is cut off because we haven't paid Dr. Finn for the evaluation bills. So reunification and evaluation are tied to the same office. And one service will not be.
Also address the coercion element of the court.
Oh, that is. Hold on, we'll get to that, Jill. Yeah. But that you feel, George, that obviously, and I think it's true, that if you don't keep the reunification therapist happy, it's not going to bear well on your custody evaluation. It's going to go to the judge, right? This sounds like a form of court-endorsed extortion to me. How do you feel?
Correct. Yes. Everything from the very beginning. And when I had an attorney too, and I would question it, and he would tell me, just take what they're giving you. Take what they're giving you. I would question him, Chris. I go, I don't want to take the crumbs. I don't. He's like, just take the crumbs. This is the process. This is what we have to do. Do what they tell you to do. Do what the child representative wants. Do what the therapist wants. Do what Dr. Finn is telling you to do. Just keep doing. I'm like, when is this going to end? If I keep just taking this, it's going to be until, she's going to be 18 and I'm going to be paying for the next 6 years. And 2 attorneys that I've had through this process just kept telling me the same thing. Just keep paying and do what you're told. Keep paying and do what you're told. Don't question it. Don't fight back. Don't argue. The minute that I question anything or raise my voice or had a question about something, I was the bad guy. And I couldn't be a father. I couldn't say anything to my kid. I have to speak a specific way. I couldn't talk as a father. I couldn't advise as a father. Every single word that came out of my mouth and my family's mouth, all of these people took and twisted it in every single way. Any boundary that me or my family tried to set, Finn, Hagler, the child representative, everybody turned it into a strategy to keep us into therapy indefinitely until the courts were satisfied that we were safe to be with.
So the point here is that how did this get resolved with Finn? What's the outstanding balance and what happened? Talk to us about the numbers first, then we'll get into something very important.
So all of these fees are still pending. I have not paid anything yet. We are supposed to go to trial at some point, and Finn has stated that he will waive the extra fees, and we would only be responsible for the $5,000 evaluation fee. But if we have to go to trial, then all fees are due, plus additional costs for him to come and testify at trial. So
what's the total bill that's there that would be due if he had to come to trial? What's the total number estimated?
$25,000 plus whatever expenses, however long the trial is going to be, which would be maybe another $10,000 after that.
And so this guy is appointed by the courts. He works for the courts. He lives, his bread and butter, he eats off the courts. And what he's doing is he's basically coercing you to give up your right to go to trial and your right to your opportunity to be heard by using a money whip, for lack of a better term. He's saying that, okay, make this thing go away, agree, go down and take what they give you, and you only pay $5,000. But if you want to press your rights and you think that you're right on this, then you have to pay not only the $5,000, you have to pay $25,000 plus my fees and everything else. Is that what we're hearing? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely. Plus bring in any other expert that I might want to bring in to refute what Finn has put out there, to combat what he put in his report. So I'd have to fight all that. We're talking about another $100,000 to go through the trial and rabbit hole of trying to get time with my daughter. And 11 years later, there isn't even a parenting agreement still. There's still no parenting agreement.
Now wait, Jill, I want to ask you something very, very important here. Okay. Now, this is the website for the Foundation of Child Victims, the family courts. Mm-hmm. You do, or you help people do billing investigations. The biggest one that you have is attorney billing investigations, because they have the most egregious overbilling historically, the attorneys do. And there's all sorts of traps that you talk about, email traps and shadow billing, duplicative efforts, strategic inefficiency. But it sounds like some of these things are present in George's case with the therapists as well. So is it a good idea for people who are in family court to have somebody look over their billing, not only their attorney billing, but the therapist billing and everything else? I think that $20,000, $25,000 that Dr. Finn is handing to George, I think that might be reduced substantially if you take out some of these shadow billings and double billings and duplicative efforts, particularly with Hagler and Finn in the same office. What do you think about that? Tell us about these billing investigations.
The foundation is made of many parts managed by major experts. The forensic billing expert has developed a unique algorithm of his own, which is objective. It deals with the rules of billing as prescribed by in this case, the Bar Association, or the licensing boards or whatever professional. But it's objective. He is simply looking at the rules of billing, and the algorithm will pick up all of what we refer to as anomalies. So, the request is for the attorney to take a look at his billing and make restitution for any, quote, errors in billing. And about 80% of the time, there's a very non-controversial agreement and meeting of minds that there may be some problems with the billing and the nature of trust account issues that maybe the attorney might want to.
I've seen these reports actually, and they're pretty excellent in the sense that they'll break down itemized lines, and then they'll be able to put, for an attorney, they'll be able to put the rule of professional conduct that's implicated in that. But for therapists as well, for any court-appointed person that goes as a timekeeper, you have a solution that basically look, because that's where they do things. If we go back to the original Finn agreement, it basically you're agreeing to allow him to come in and overbill you. That's what this agreement is. This is an overbilling agreement form. We're going to bill you whatever we want. We're going to give you estimates, but you're not going to be held to our estimates. We told you $20-something thousand here. It ended up being $50,000 by the time everything is said and done. So, it makes a lot of sense to be able to do this billing review with these timekeepers. And so, George, is this something that, you wish you knew about a few years ago? You've been in a 10-year divorce,
Definitely.
right? Do you think this might have helped you out on day one?
Oh, definitely. Having somebody looking over this, especially with the child representative who hadn't issued a bill to us for 2 years. We had not had a 90-day statement for 2 years to review. And 2 years later, we got hit with $20,000, unable to verify everything that was listed in there.
Yeah.
It's important
it's
to
out
note,
of control.
It's important to note that an additional element of coercion is that the judge is implementing the therapy and forcing the billing. And if George doesn't,
there we go. There's the judge's signature ordering the court-appointed person. And George said it before.
Right.
Finn was not the first one. There was the attorney for the child and the attorney for the child. Oh, I have a great guy that you could hire, Finn. And then Finn brings in Hagler, and they brought in other people. How many people are looking to get their hands in your pocket, George? How many court appointments have you dealt with?
So there was another therapist that I was supposed to see individually, and I refused, and they didn't like that. I said, if you want me to see someone, I want to see someone under my insurance. I'm not going to another one that you're recommending that's part of the same network out of insurance. And they didn't like it. I went back and forth in court and until we switched to the third judge who finally agreed to it. But the child representative, Joanna Shalacombe, fought me tooth and nail over 3 court sessions, refusing to allow me to see someone under my insurance network.
Yeah, and this goes back to something that we talk about a lot, and I cover a lot of family court reform, and one of the basic premises is that the family court needs to be doing 2 things. They need to be making a determination about the property and a determination about the custody, and that's in a divorce case. If you're not married, it's just a determination about the custody. Mm-hmm. They should not be in the business of trying to fix people. And it seems like that this system where you have a court appointed that brings in a court appointed that brings in a court appointed is in the business of fixing people. And it's gotten away from the idea of making a custody determination, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the most famous custody determination ever is from the Bible. King Solomon, right? King Solomon said, whose child is this? Get the sword. We'll cut the baby. King Solomon was able to fix this in a matter of minutes. Now, I know these judges, not every judge is King Solomon. Definitely a lot of these lawyers, they're not King Solomon. But should it take 10 years for a custody question to be resolved when I think it probably could take a few months to get things together, tops if you did your due diligence? No, this is a system. George, talk to us about it.
Since 2015, we were on and off until 2022, and we've been going full force since 2023. And the first thing that I did, I went to the judge and I requested a parenting plan. That was it to me. Let's come to an agreement, have a parenting plan, and be done. And I requested it 3 times, and the judge just kept brushing it off. Well, no, let's get you evaluated. Let's get you through therapy. Let's get exactly what you just said, trying to fix the situation. And all I kept saying is, I'm a dad. I know how to handle my life with my kid. Just let us live it. Let us figure things out ourselves. Put her in the home, give me time with her, give her time with her mom, and we'll figure our stuff out. And it never happened.
These situations have nothing to do with fixing anything. Fixing it is when a parent who is an abuser does not see the child and is either in treatment or in jail or whatever combination, but the child is safe. Let's call it what it is. This is a child trafficking criminal enterprise. This has nothing to do with therapy. Therapy takes place under voluntary, confidential. It's a scientific and professional concept, but it's not done with a gun to your head. And this is not just a gun to your head, it's threats of prison, it's taking your property,
Yeah.
it's other people managing and controlling your life when you haven't done anything wrong. You are living your life.
It's court legitimized extortion is what
Yes,
I'm hearing. That's what many people call it.
The worst part of it all is you have this piece of paper that says you have visits, but then the police put their hands up and say, we can't do anything to enforce it. Go back to the judge, get an attorney. You have this piece of paper that says, these are your days for visitation. These are the days you can be with your kid, but nobody enforces it. You can't do anything with it anyway. Go back to therapy, go back to court, get an attorney, go back to the judge.
But what is enforced is when the child is with the parent and the court sends in the police with guns drawn to remove the child from the protective parent and transfer them under duress, under force to to the person that the children are looking for protection against. And you will not find police coming to protect the child from the abuser. They'll say, go to court, get an evaluation. You see police coming with guns drawn, 6, 7 police driving up with cars to remove little children from their protective parent.
And so we've been going for almost about an hour. We're going to wrap up shortly, but on a final set of points, I do want to thank you, George, for coming on. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, it's very courageous for someone like you to come forward and talk about this system, yes. Because a lot of times they try to retaliate. And do you fear that Dr. Finn may try to retaliate against you for trying to talk about some of the inner workings of the family court system?
I do. I fear that. On the one hand, to me, I fear that my daughter's lost to me, and I've lost this battle overall with the system. And that's one big reason why I'm on here now, because I don't think I have much more to lose in the situation. But in the back of my mind, yeah, I'm waiting for something else, the other shoe to drop.
And what's left? Hold on a sec. What's left in your case at this point? You've been waiting for years for a custody determination. You have to go to trial. Is there a trial in sight?
No, there isn't. That's the final thing. I mean, we just keep getting continuance because the judge is waiting to see how reunification is going, and reunification is just not going.
But the child doesn't want to see you because of the very malignant circumstances.
Correct.
So,
and how old is your daughter now?
She is going to be 15 in November.
So she's 15 years old. I think it should be pretty easy. It's not like you have little kids at this point. She's 15. It's a lot more of an ability to bring the kid in and say, "What do you think?" What judge does that today? But you would think that would be common sense, right? I can understand you can't bring in a 4-year-old, but a 15-year-old you can say, "Okay, what do you think? What do you want to do?" Take the child into consideration. They don't do that in the family courts. I've had cases in that I've covered, especially in Chicago, in Cook County, the Girard case, where they're fighting tooth and nail for these girls to age out. The girls are saying up until age 18, listen, we want to be with our dad. We love our dad. Our moms, we don't want to be with our mom. And they go fighting tooth and nail. They had a big law firm, one of the bigger ones. I don't know if you've ever run into Bierman. That
was the first law firm that mom had on that end.
Oh, tell us about Bierman. Who was her lawyer? Oh, this is now we're getting fun.
I don't remember the last name. Madison, somebody from Bierman. There was
wow.
Charlie and Madison. So those were her two. Yeah, when we first started in 2015, she had Bierman. Yeah, and I had
Bierman's a factory. They are the factory out of Chicago.
Deerfield, I was shocked by that because, again, we don't have that kind of income to have had Bierman on her side. So I don't know where she got how she got them back then.
They bring them in, I guess, like vampires do. They get the first blood suck out of them and get a good blood suck out of them, and it is what it is. So, wow, that's and every time I go to, I have a story about Chicago and family court. And just, horror stories, horror shows. Bierman's name always comes up. I didn't bring up Bierman today. It came up. Mm-hmm. And so this is crazy stuff. So I'm going to give each of you the last word on this. And Jill, I'm going to start with you. Tell us, how people can avoid getting in situations like Dr. Finn and like these court appointeds, and how they can be protected in the family court structure.
Well, that's a non-starter because there is no protection. When you enter the court, before you have done met with anybody or made an appearance, your family court statement, your expenses and your financials have already been evaluated by the court, all parties, and the decision as to who's going to get what and where the assets are going to be divided are prearranged. So I'm sorry to say this, but the family court and its current iteration, since the concept of Gardner has been released through the Federal Bar Association.
There are people out there, Jill. Wait, there are people that say abolish family court. I know Marianne Petrie all the time, abolish family court. But that's not going to work for somebody like. Well, hold on a second. It's not going to work for somebody like George. What can somebody like George do to have somebody watch his back?
You retain the foundation to litigate and prosecute court personnel who are violating constitutional rights and harming children. That's what you do. One of the major functions of the foundation, and which, because the foundation began following the suicide death of a young child who was forced into the custody of a brutally abusive father, my function and the way I conceived of the foundation in the beginning was as a duty to warn the public and to mobilize the public to not be Silence of the Lambs going to be butchered. So at this point, I don't care what part of the country you are. I don't care what state you're in. I don't care what jurisdiction you're in. You will be subject to the same child trafficking criminal enterprise where children are going to be moved from one parent to another. Their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, from little ones to big ones, are not going to be considered. This is all about cash flow. And the staff of these courts at this point and the attorneys who participate are part of the criminal enterprise. And they know it. And I don't care what anybody says, there is a back channel acknowledgement of everybody's role and participation. So that being said, I'm going to move it over to George. George, I'm going to give you the final word, but tell us, what this has done to you over the last 10 years, and the idea that, how do you feel now at this point? Where are you? Where are you going? And just give us your final thoughts.
I mean, for me, the whole experience, I had frozen in my tracks over all this. I had a beautiful little girl that I was with for 11 years, and going through this process and losing her this way, there's no fighting it anymore. Mom bought her a dog, a phone. There's so many things that to influence a teenager at this point that fighting all this in court is getting me nowhere. And just, if I could have gone backwards in time and started this the minute she was born, I question if it would have been any different. We were never married, and that's why, the rules are different when you're not married, right? You don't automatically get 50-50, and that's part of the problem right there, right? When you're not married, the rules are different when it comes to custody. So for me, coming from a business background, I'm looking at this and I'm like, if you could have just put a PowerPoint presentation up there and present the case and knock this out in an hour and make a decision instead of dragging this out for 11 years. This is a very simple thing. There's a lot of these things, and I've sat on other cases and watched other parents cry, and I've gone to 10 weeks of trauma therapy, 9 to 5 outpatient, because I was so broken over this experience. And I've seen another father take his life in this session that I was at because of similar situations. And it's just, it's devastating. There's a lot of groups and organizations like Jill's here, Parents Against Parental Alienation, many other organizations that there's millions of people in these situations, and still the courts and the justice system does nothing to change all this. It still drags on. And parents and kids are just, homes are breaking up. And some kids are never recovering from this when they grow older.
And on that note, we'll leave it at that. Well, we'll keep apprised about your case and see what's happening. And hopefully tonight we were able to bring information to the public about one of the perils and the traps of family court. So thank you, George, and thank you, Jill, for coming on tonight.
Thank you both. Thank you.
All right, take care.